The Fargo Five. I'm Conrad Fargo. This is the city of frost and fire. You're going to discover the authentic stories of the extraordinary people that define our north of normal metro. We have today Pastor Robert Drake from the Morehead Presbyterian Church. Hello, Pastor Drake.
Hello, Conrad. It's great to be here.
Oh, it helps if I turn the mic on there. Why don't
should I say it again?
I think we got it. We'll get there. All right. So you are a pastor.
I am.
In Morehead.
I am.
At the Presbyterian Church.
I am.
Now, we've got a few...
That's 3 for 3.
And we've got a few Presbyterian churches in town?
We do.
Okay.
We have 5.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
we 1, 2, 3, 4, well, 5. We 5 or 6, and where they are is there's a Dilworth, then 7. Okay, so it depends on where you describe as Fargo-Moorhead.
Sure. Yeah, the metro. Where does it start and stop?
So let's go the metro. So Baker Downer, kind of over by Barnesville, Dilworth, Morehead, Fargo, West Fargo, Castleton. There's also a PCA Presbyterian Church as well.
We have a lot of churches in town, though.
There's that's a good thing.
But
yeah,
is Presbyterian one of the more common denominations? I mean, there's so many denominations,
Whoa.
I feel like.
No, for here, no.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can count, let's count the Lutheran churches.
Sure.
Which we can't because there's too many.
Okay.
So
okay.
Morehead alone,
That's
I'm just doing this from memory.
Yeah.
Has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Morehead alone has 6 Lutheran churches, and those are all ELCA Lutheran churches. I may be off by 1.
And that's different from Presbyterian, which is all different from Catholic,
and
which is different from
and then there's different Lutheran.
Yes.
And there's different Presbyterian. I think we really only have 2. Well, no, we have 3 types of Presbyterian. There's 1, 2, 3. There's at least 4 or 5, well-known different Lutheran churches.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was raised Catholic. I was adopted by a Catholic family when I was 7.
Okay, I'm learning a lot about you now.
Did the Catholic thing for 10 years. They called that the universal. And then Martin Luther kind of split everything up, right? And that's were you raised Presbyterian, or did you kind of jump from one of the because all the other ones would be considered Protestant, right?
Correct,
these are all when you say. I'm just kind of trying to think, how do these get cataloged? How does it all come together, right? When somebody hears Presbyterian, they may not know. I don't know what that means. I don't because, like I said,
this is interesting. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's interesting about this is that I tend to forget this.
Yeah.
I tend to forget that people are not fully aware of all the stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your question?
Well, so with the show, and what I'm always trying to do is put myself into the listener's shoes and just imagine they have no context for the because they come into this and they go, okay, who's this person?
Yeah,
and they have no context for it. So I say you're a Presbyterian, and if they are like me, right? I was raised Catholic. That's my only context. So I know it as, the one true religion from Rome and all the Protestants. And that's the extent of my knowledge.
Well, at least you can say Presbyterian.
Sure.
So you're one leg up
funky.
already.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Presbyterian. Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to know how many of your listeners can say Presbyterian. And then, of course, know what all the differences are.
Yeah.
How deep do you want to go in?
Well, what I really want to try to get a grasp of is how would they, if they don't have a context for it, or let's say they weren't even raised. What if they weren't raised in the United States and Christianity in general? My wife is Japanese. Christianity to her is just one big foreign religion, right?
I suppose.
So if you're looking at it from the outside, there's this Jesus figure and the cross, and you've kind of got a sense of
basics,
of Christmas happens and okay. But where's the context? How do you distinguish between Christians? And were you raised Presbyterian then?
Oh, that was your question.
That was
the. So I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to jump to the bigger overall question.
Yeah.
So raised Methodist.
Oh. Which is a different kind of Protestant.
A different type of Protestant,
okay.
Absolutely. It's
they're all Protestant. If it's not Catholic, it's Protestant, right? Is that?
Now I'm going to hesitate to. I mean, yes, they are Protestant, most distinctly, but they're a very different brand of Protestants.
Methodists are
from Presbyterians and Lutherans.
Okay.
And in any case, so I was raised Methodist in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. That's where I'm from.
Okay.
and it was just a normal church. So I graduated high school in '88, so I'm a kid of the '70s and '80s. And in that era, churches were more distinguished, like differentiated from each other, based on their style of worship and their belief system, or their belief doctrines, and also by their management systems. Okay, so I left one thing out.
Okay.
Because it really was not as important in the 70s and 80s as it is today. And that's their political or political cultural identifications.
Okay.
So, and now we're getting into the bigger, deeper. Okay.
No, this is fascinating.
And this is just me. So your listeners should really understand that this is not, I'm not a university professor. I'm not teaching this stuff. I am one Presbyterian pastor.
But that's what I want to know is your personal perspective and what you...
That's kind of like a caveat. Like, hey, this is just like, you might have a listener out there who goes, well, I'm a pastor, and like I totally disagree with him. Hey, then you should come on Conrad's show. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and so on the show, we try not to talk religion and politics just because it's divisive. However, it's a fact of reality. Right, like everything is like what you believe.
Yes,
like that is religion and politics, what you believe, and so we can talk about them in a clinical or a factual.
And that's what I'll do.
And it's as long as we're not endorsing or like yelling at somebody, no fire and brimstone.
Correct.
But if we're just like, look, this is this and that is that, and here's a painting of what these look like, at least to me. That's fine. That's so fine. That's in the mission of the show,
so
1,000,000%.
Today now, how these churches differentiate themselves from each other is going to be less based on those first three that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So less based on their doctrinal beliefs, less based on their management, their internal management systems, and less based on their style of worship. Maybe I'll take that one out. I think style of worship is still very important. But today, what has happened, and this probably started maybe back in the 90s, okay, was a denominations or a specific church, their predominant, the predominant politics of the majority of their members.
Yeah.
So even within Presbyterian, now again, earlier in the show, or like 2 minutes ago maybe, we talked about 3 types of Presbyterian churches. Those are PCUSA, PCA, and ECO.
Oh.
Sorry to throw a whole bunch of letters out there. Someone in your audience is...
So even amongst the Presbyterians...
100%.
There is a fracturing.
Oh, yes. Going back a long time.
Martin Luther really kind of threw it all into a tizzy.
Okay, we're going to leave Martin Luther off for a while. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in 1517. And then we'll be like, okay, so we're just going to say like right now. Okay, so for PCUSA, we are the largest of those 3 Presbyterian churches. And even within PCUSA, each church can have a slightly or greatly different political leaning.
Yeah.
There are PCUSA churches who would never in a million years have a female pastor or a gay pastor.
Okay.
So they would be, and notice I'm trying not to use the words conservative or liberal, so I'm not going to do that.
Well, why not? I mean, I feel like that's the context we all know.
It is, but that's why I want to use examples.
Okay.
So I'm just going to use examples. So that church, somebody who also does not think that that women should be pastors, or maybe they don't believe in climate change or something like that, they would be more at home if they're Presbyterian and if they want to remain PCUSA. They're going to look for a church that, even though it's PCUSA, and there are lots of PCUSA churches that would call a gay pastor or would call a female pastor, or who would advocate for climate change, there are a lot of PCUSA churches that would never call a gay pastor, would never call a female pastor, and does not believe in climate change. So even within PCUSA, there's quite this broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Now, that's also the case for ELCA. So ELCA is the Lutheran Church, Evangelical Church. I'm not Lutheran. ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Thank you. There
Christian Lutheran, probably.
No.
Oh, ELCA.
Evangelical
I'm sorry. Yep. No, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Lutheran Church in
Anyhow,
America. Yep.
done.
There's ELCA. There's also then they're the largest for Lutherans.
Yeah.
Then there's Lutheran Brethren. Then there's Wisconsin Lutheran, and I forget.
So the specifics are fine, but what I'm kind of picking up from you is that something happened in the 80s which fractured many of the segments
and what
along
was
political lines.
Political and culture.
Yeah, and it seems to me like that divide is maybe traditionalists versus. I mean, progressive is such a loaded term.
It is,
but traditionalists versus modernists, perhaps we'll say. Those who are keeping the old ways versus adapting to new ways.
So this is an old age issue. I won't even say problem.
Sure.
Currently, I am reading a history book on Austria. Okay. And this is on top of just finishing a really, really big book on history of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Constantine, fascinating guy.
I did not start with
I mean, he's the one who started it, right?
Constantine.
He was like
Charlemagne
saw the cross in the sky, and he was like,
no, this is the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay, then I don't know. Okay.
So see, I also did not know. Like, okay, Roman Empire, Holy Roman Empire, cross in the sky. That was when Christianity actually became okay within the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Who was that? Wasn't that?
That was Constantine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, what is always a constant reality in human societies is that there is a tug of war, sometimes really harsh and sometimes more gentle, between a pull towards, you use the word modern, a pull towards modernism, modernist, a pull towards some progress.
New, maybe just new.
Correct?
Yeah, new thing, just new.
And then a pulling back, no, let's stay with traditional values.
Yeah, maybe novelty. Novelty might be the lens to it. There is a pull towards, but towards keeping what is established and doing something new and novel.
Yes.
And so let's just try something new, or let's keep things the way they've been. There's kids these days.
Well, then the issue though becomes like if you're talking about female pastors, let's say.
Yeah.
That would have been so for PCUSA for Presbyterian. This is so complicated because PCUSA was not PCUSA, or was it? It was 89, I think. So the reason this is complicated, and the reason we're in the weeds already, okay, is because the dominant branch of Presbyterian in America split over the Civil War.
Wow.
Okay, so then we became the North
really
and the
goes
South.
Back.
Exactly. So I can't even say when PCUSA started ordaining women because I don't even think we were PCUSA at the time. I believe we were still PCUS.
So you got Yankee Presbyterians and Confederate Presbyterians? Is that really?
And so
wow.
the North and South.
Are you a Northern? We're all up north here,
well,
right?
See, but then we merged.
I see.
In 85.
It all mixes. In
85.
It came back
1985.
together. So it fractured politically.
And became PCUSA, I believe, in 85.
So Presbyterian, is it the only one that, so it fractured politically during the Civil War, finally came back together, and now fractures again along political lines?
Political, cultural.
Yeah. Are those the lines that drew you to Presbyterianism then? Does Methodism not have this issue, or what?
No.
Okay.
So now we're into one of the other reasons people pick a church. Okay?
Yeah.
So like for your listeners, you're like, so for somebody who didn't go to church, how would you define your church, or what do they look for? What are the differences? What would somebody see or notice? So the reason I became Presbyterian, and this is why a lot of people join a particular church, again, is not because of the belief structure, not because of their internal management system, not because of their worship style, but because they just like the people. So the reason I joined, I switched from being Methodist to Presbyterian is because I was living in a small town in Georgia with my now husband, and we went to a Presbyterian church, and it happened to fit. The people happened to be really wonderful and really nice, and the worship was pretty good, and we were really welcomed. And before you know it, like, we joined.
I see.
So it wasn't that we started going there. This was probably 16 years ago. It wasn't that we started going there and then I like asked the pastor, like, hey, can you give me your book on everything you believe? Or can you tell me how are you managed? Like, do you have a council or who makes decisions? No, I'm like, we're going there and it's like, hey, this feels right.
Yeah.
So today, I think the number one thing people choose when they go to a church, not the only, is, does it feel right? Does it fit me? Do I like the people? Now, definitely at some point, they're going to be looking at, well, what is the preacher, the pastor saying at the front? Is he saying stuff I agree with? Now, somebody else might say, well, they should be preaching the Bible if they're not preaching the Bible. Well, like, dude, I'm preaching the Bible.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can still disagree with what I'm saying. Now, there would be people who want to then say, well, if I disagree with you, well, then you're not preaching the Bible. That's just not true.
Well,
okay.
Sure.
And what they're going to say is they're going to say, well, no one should interpret there's no interpretation of the Bible. There's just one Bible and God said it, therefore I believe it.
Okay.
That's also not right, because every single pastor, every single Christian believer is reading the Bible and the stories of Jesus and the story of people's walk with God and God's walk with people from their individual experience in life. So even if you take someone, now I'm going to have to use ill-defining terms, even if you take someone who's a conservative Christian, they are going to have disagreements with fellow conservative Christians.
Sure.
It's just human nature.
Yeah.
And I, obviously, as a openly gay pastor who's married, I'm a liberal Christian pastor. I have to be, and I have to use that term, even though it's ill-fitting at times, because I'm gay.
Sure.
So somebody else is going to say, well, there should be no such thing as number one, there should be no, like, gay people who are gay. Again, I'm speaking in the voice of a conservative Christian. They would be saying, like, well, that just goes against God's plan, and the fact that a church would even ordain a gay person, that's just, the whole church is going to hell.
Yeah.
So that's, very quickly when we're trying to talk about churches, especially today, and probably also in Martin Luther days, too, 15, 17.
Yeah.
You can't stay on the surface. It's very tough.
Yeah. Well, I think our share, if modernity has shown anything, it's how little our reality is shared. We think that everybody lives in the same world that we do, but in fact, what's going on in your head is not always the same as what's going on in my head. I didn't know anything about Presbyterianism. You were like, well, of course, of course you would know everything, right? And we're all just kind of grasping at the elephant, so to speak, and figuring it out. So you go from Methodism. Obviously, you move up into being a pastor. Or a pastor. How am I supposed to pronounce that? Pastor, pasture.
I have not been pasteurized, so pastor.
Okay, I didn't get
like it's an ER, like realtor.
Okay, yes, that's realtor. A fun word.
But that has an O in it.
Yes. So should I call you a
pastor? You can say pastor. Pasteurized pastor.
No, everybody says, because I am a realtor at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services,
that's
Premier Properties.
Realtor.
And everybody says realtor. Like they put an extra symbol, and it drives me crazy. So if they were to call you a pacitor.
Oh, we do say realtor. We add an A in there, kind of, don't we?
Realtors don't.
Realtors don't.
Anybody who knows the profession doesn't.
And the way it looks, it should be like realtor.
Yes, it's how it's spelled, right?
Realtor.
So pastor, realtor. There we go. So you're a pastor. So anyway, you became a pastor, and now you're doing the Sausage Fest. That'll be the next.
That's why I'm here.
I want to move.
Well, that's the only reason why I'm here. But
no,
yes.
I'm glad to move into.
I mean,
that.
we are. I mean, I don't wear this
just for fun. This
just
isn't.
for
This
fun,
is
no.
well. I mean, you are a try something new kind of a pastor.
Yes.
So
Yep.
maybe you're
Yep.
just trying to bring a new style.
Yep.
Right? It looks good.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, it's
Thank you.
actually, and it's almost ironic that you're not what one would consider a traditionalist because you've got traditional German clothes on.
It would be hard to say I'm not a traditionalist. Absolutely.
Okay, so you're
And
you're
Luther was German, and Presbyterians came off of a branch of the Protestant Revolution or Reformation. I mean,
I
Reformation.
see. But obviously your sect of Presbyterianism must be a more modern one, or are you more of a traditionalist then? Is the only modern thing going on in your church
Sausage Fest?
an acceptance? No,
an acceptance of homosexuality.
Yeah.
No, we also have a pretty modern worship style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have a very modern preaching style. I just preach from a music stand in the middle. I don't preach from the pulpit. I'm not in a robe. Sometimes I might wear a jacket, but usually just a shirt.
Never that, not that.
Never.
Okay, not on that. Okay.
It's not exactly comfortable.
Yeah. All right. Well, so you did come to talk about Sausage Fest. I want to talk about that. We will just take a brief intermission, and when we come back, we will have that Sausage Fest. So don't go nowhere.